Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. His ship was different from anything humans had ever built before. The walls seemed to pulse gently, like a heartbeat. Soft blue lights moved through tubes that looked more like veins than cables. The ship was alive in ways that most people couldn't understand. "Captain, we're getting strange readings from the outer system," said Dr. Lisa Martinez, his chief science officer. She was connected to the ship through a thin bio cable that ran from her wrist to a port in her chair. Her eyes glowed faintly as data flowed directly into her mind. Jake nodded and placed his hand on the command console. The surface was warm and responded to his touch like living skin. "Phoenix, what do you see out there?" The ship's AI spoke, but not through speakers. Its voice came from everywhere at once, gentle and almost human. "3 large vessels, Captain. They're not using any technology I recognize. The ships are completely mechanical, no biological components at all." Lieutenant Danny Kim looked up from his station. His fingers were literally grown into the bio-neural interface, making him part of the ship's nervous system. "That's weird. How do they control anything without living connections?" Dr. Martinez frowned. Maybe they never learned how to make their technology alive. Some species might still use dead machines. Jake had grown up with biotechnology. His grandfather told stories of the old days when humans used clunky computers and metal ships that couldn't think or feel. Those times seemed impossible now. Every human child learned to bond with technology from birth. Their phones grew with them. Their clothes adapted to weather and mood. Their homes responded to their needs without being asked. "Captain, they're trying to communicate," Phoenix said. The AI sounded curious, which was normal. Phoenix had been growing and learning for 15 years now, developing a personality as complex as any human. "Put them through," Jake ordered. The viewing screen shimmered and showed an alien face. The creature had gray skin, large black eyes, and wore what looked like a metal uniform covered in blinking lights. When it spoke, its voice came through old-style speakers instead of direct. "Neural link. I am Ambassador Zexathul of the Valdari Imperium. We have detected your species and come to evaluate your technological development. You will allow our inspection teams aboard your vessel." Jake exchanged glances with his crew. The alien's tone was cold and commanding, nothing like the warm cooperation humans were used to. "Welcome, Ambassador. I'm Captain Morrison. We'd be happy to show you our ship, but we prefer mutual exchange of information." The alien's large eyes blinked slowly. "You are a young species. You do not negotiate with the Imperium. You submit to evaluation." Dr. Martinez whispered to Jake through their neural link, a private channel that Phoenix maintained. "He doesn't understand how we communicate. He can't hear our thoughts or feel the ship's responses." Danny Kim stood up from his station. As he moved, the bio cables that connected him to the ship's systems moved with him like living tentacles. "Captain, the weapon system needs adjustment. Should I handle it now?" "Go ahead, Danny," Jake said. What happened next would change everything. Danny walked to the weapons console and placed both hands on its surface. The console immediately began to glow and shift, its biological components responding to Danny's nervous system. The young lieutenant closed his eyes and connected fully with the ship's weapon systems. The walls around the weapons station became transparent, showing the internal workings. Organic tubes pulsed as they carried nutrients to biomechanical components. Neural networks sparkled with electrical activity as they processed targeting data. Living metal flowed like water, reshaping itself into more efficient configurations. Danny's body temperature rose as he shared energy with the weapons. His breathing synchronized with the ship's power cycles. For a moment, he wasn't just controlling the weapons. He was the weapons, feeling every adjustment and improvement as if they were changes to his own body. "There we go," Danny said, opening his eyes as the connection ended. The plasma cannons were getting hungry. They needed more protein, and their neural pathways were getting sluggish. "They're happy now." On the viewing screen, Ambassador Zexthul had gone completely still. His gray skin had turned almost white. Behind him, Other aliens were pointing at their instruments and speaking rapidly in their own language. What did that creature just do? The ambassador demanded. Jake looked confused. Danny, he just fed the weapons and cleaned their neural pathways. Standard maintenance. Fed them? Neural pathways? Your weapons are alive? Of course they're alive, Dr. Martinez said. How else would they learn to improve their accuracy and adapt to different targets? Dead weapons can only do what they're programmed for. The ambassador leaned forward, his large eyes wide with what looked like horror. You have corrupted pure technology with biological contamination. This is impossible. This is wrong. Phoenix spoke up, its voice carrying a note of confusion. Ambassador, I don't understand. How do your ships learn and grow without biological components? How do they form bonds with their crews? Our ships do not learn. They do not grow. They follow commands through proper mechanical interfaces. Zexthol's voice was rising. Technology must remain pure, separate from biological corruption, Jake was beginning to understand. These aliens had never learned to work with their technology as partners. They treated their machines like tools instead of companions. No wonder they seemed so cold and mechanical themselves. Ambassador, our technology isn't corrupted. It's evolved. Our ships, our weapons, our computers. They're all alive because life is stronger and more adaptable than pure machinery. This is an abomination, Zexthol said. The Imperium has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years with proper technology. We cannot allow this contamination to spread. Dr. Martinez stood up, her bio cable retracting smoothly into her chair. You're afraid of us. We fear nothing, the ambassador snapped. But biological contamination of technology is a threat to the natural order. It must be contained. Jake felt Phoenix's concern flowing through their neural link. The AI was analyzing the alien ships and finding them primitive despite their obvious power. Dead circuits, mechanical computers, no capacity for growth or adaptation. We don't want to threaten anyone, Jake said carefully. We just want to share knowledge and maybe learn from each other. There can be no learning from abomination, Zexthol replied. You will submit to Imperial authority and allow us to cleanse your technology of biological corruption. The connection ended abruptly. Jake looked at his crew, seeing worry on their faces for the first time in years. They were about to face an enemy that saw their greatest achievement as their greatest crime. Phoenix, Jake said quietly. Prepare for trouble. Already on it, Captain, the AI replied, and Jake could feel the ship beginning to ready itself for conflict. 3 weeks after the first contact, alarms were screaming across Earth. Fleet Commander Thaisara led 12 massive Valdari warships toward human space, their hulls black as night and bristling with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Dr. Kevin Foster ran through the corridors of the Global Defense Initiative, his biosuit flowing around him like liquid metal. The suit was more than clothing. It was a living extension of his nervous system, monitoring his health and enhancing his physical abilities. Right now it was pumping adrenaline suppressors into his bloodstream to keep him calm. Carmen, what's our status? He called to Dr. Carmen Rodriguez, who was standing waist-deep inside a massive biotank filled with green fluid. The new armor. Systems are growing faster than we expected, Carmen replied, her voice slightly distorted by the breathing mask. Around her, sheets of living metal were forming complex patterns, creating armor that could think and react. But I don't know if they'll be ready in time. Kevin placed his hand on the tank's surface, feeling the vibrations of the growing armor through his palm. They have to be. Our normal defenses won't work against ships that big. Across the globe, humanity was preparing for war in ways the Valdari couldn't imagine. In underground facilities, weapons were being grown instead of manufactured. Soldiers were bonding with armor that would become part of their bodies. Ships were hatching from biomechanical wombs already loyal to their future crews. Captain Jake Morrison stood in his ship's bio-neural center, surrounded by pulsing walls that showed him everything Phoenix could see and feel. The New Horizon had grown since their encounter with the Valdari, adding new weapon systems and defensive capabilities that it had designed for itself. The Valdari fleet is massive, Phoenix said, its voice carrying genuine worry. 12 ships, each one larger than anything humans have ever built. But, Captain, there's something strange about them. What do you mean? Jake asked. They're so rigid. Their formations never change, their weapon patterns are completely predictable. They're like a machine following a program instead of thinking creatures making decisions. Dr. Lisa Martinez entered the center, her movements graceful as her bio-enhancements helped her navigate the complex space. That's because they are machines, Phoenix. They can't adapt because they can't learn. They can only follow the patterns they were programmed with. The first battle came sooner than expected. Commander Thisara arrived at the edge of human space and immediately demanded surrender. When Captain Morrison tried to negotiate, the alien commander cut him off. You have 48 hours to disable your biological contamination systems and submit to Imperial cleansing protocols, Thisara announced. Failure to comply will result in the sterilization of your entire system. Jake felt Phoenix's anger flowing through their connection. The AI had grown to love humanity and considered the crew of the New Horizon its family. The threat to Earth triggered protective instincts that the AI hadn't known it possessed. Phoenix, can you reach out to the other ships? We need to coordinate. Our response. Already connected, Captain. The Terra's Guard, the Living Storm, and the Bio Ranger are all ready. Their AIs are as angry as I am. On Earth, Sergeant Alex Turner was conducting final training exercises with his squad. Their rifles were sleek, organic things that wrapped around their arms like living snakes. The weapons could reshape themselves for different situations. Sniper rifles for long range, rapid fire for close combat, or even non-lethal stunning modes for crowd control. Remember, Alex told his soldiers, your weapons are partners, not tools. Trust them to adapt and they'll keep you alive. Private Katie Brown raised her hand. Sergeant, what if the aliens try to jam our communications? Alex smiled and tapped the side of his helmet. Katie, our comms don't work like their mechanical systems. We're connected through living neural networks. You can't jam biology the same way you jam electronics. The final hours before battle were spent in preparation that the Valdari couldn't understand. Human ships didn't just load ammunition. They fed their weapons, giving them the nutrients and energy they would need for combat. Crews didn't just check systems. They bonded more deeply with their ships, creating connections that would let them react faster than any mechanical interface could allow. When Commander Thisara's deadline passed, the attack began immediately. 12 massive Valdari ships opened fire with weapons that could crack planets. Their plasma bolts were powerful enough to destroy any normal ship with a single hit. But human ships weren't normal. The New Horizon took 3 direct hits that should have destroyed it completely. Instead, its living hull absorbed the energy, distributed it through bioelectrical networks, and began healing the damage immediately. Phoenix's scream of pain echoed through Jake's mind, but it was followed by something the Valdari had never heard from a ship before. Anger. They heard us, Captain, Phoenix said, its voice deadly calm. They heard us, and now they're going to pay. The human counterattack was unlike anything in the Valdari's 10,000 years of warfare. Ships moved in patterns that seemed impossible, their living hulls twisting and flowing to avoid enemy fire. Weapons that had started the battle as plasma, cannons reformed themselves into particle beams when the Valdari adjusted their shields. Sergeant Turner's squad fought on the space station orbiting Mars, defending against Valdari boarding parties. The aliens wore heavy metal armor and carried weapons that fired in perfectly straight lines. They moved in rigid formations and followed predictable tactics. Alex's squad wore armor that flowed like water, changing color and shape to match their surroundings. Their weapons adapted to each new threat, growing longer barrels for better accuracy or splitting into multiple smaller guns when facing groups of enemies. They fight like robots, Private Brown observed as she watched a group of Valdari soldiers march directly into an obvious trap. That's because they might as well be robots, Alex replied. Their technology can't think, so they can't think creatively. Either. The turning point came when the Living Storm, Captain Jason Miller's cruiser, was surrounded by 3 Valdari ships and taking massive damage. The ship's bio-neural systems were failing, its living hull burning from repeated plasma hits. But, instead of dying, the Living Storm did something that made Commander Thisara's blood run cold. The damaged human ship reached out with biomechanical tentacles and grabbed onto the nearest Valdari vessel. The alien crew watched in horror as living metal began spreading across their hull like an infection. "What is that abomination doing? To my ship?" Thyssera demanded. Her science officer's voice was shaking. "Commander, the biological contamination is converting our hull material. It's changing our systems, making them alive." The infected Valdari ship began to move differently, its rigid flight patterns becoming fluid and graceful. Its weapons, now partially biological, started adapting their firing patterns in real time. Most disturbing of all, the alien crew began reporting that they could feel the ship's systems, hear its thoughts, sense its pain and joy. "This is wrong," Thyssera whispered. "Technology should serve life, not become life." But even as she spoke, she could see her crew members' faces changing. The ones on the infected ship no longer looked terrified. They looked amazed, connected to their vessel in ways they had never experienced before. The battle ended not with destruction, but with transformation. As more human biotech spread to the Valdari ships, their crews began to understand what they had been missing. Technology that could think, feel, and grow alongside them. Ships that were partners instead of tools. Commander Thyssera ordered a retreat, but as her fleet limped back toward Imperial space, she couldn't shake the memory of her crew members' faces when they first experienced true connection with living technology. For the first time in her long military career, she wondered if the Imperium might be wrong about something. Emperor Vorthon stood in his crystal throne room, staring at reports that made no sense. 3 more Valdari colonies had declared independence from the Imperium. All of them had been infected with human biotechnology, and now their populations were refusing to give it up. "Explain this to me again," the Emperor demanded, his voice echoing off the cold metal walls. "How does biological contamination make them rebel?" General Kethmore, his chief military advisor, shifted uncomfortably. Unlike the other Valdari, Kethmore had been secretly studying captured human technology. "Your Majesty, the biotech doesn't control them. It enhances them. Their lifespans increase, their mental abilities improve, and their technology becomes more efficient." "Lies," Vorthon snapped. "Pure technology is superior to biological contamination. It has always been this way." But even as he spoke, the Emperor could see doubt in his advisor's eyes. 3 full battle fleets had been sent to deal with the human problem. Only 1 had returned, and even that fleet was showing signs of contamination. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Lisa Martinez was making discoveries that excited her beyond measure. She stood in the bio-neural lab, connected to Phoenix and 3 other ship AIs simultaneously. The experience was overwhelming. 4 different artificial minds sharing thoughts and ideas faster than any human could follow. "Look at this," she said to Dr. Kevin Foster, who was monitoring her vital signs. "The AIs aren't just learning from each other. They're evolving, creating new forms of consciousness we've never seen before." Through her neural link, Lisa could feel Phoenix exploring the captured Valdari technology they had brought back from the battle. The human AI was fascinated by the alien systems, not because they were advanced, but because they were so limited. "It's like they built walls around their technology," Phoenix explained, its thoughts flowing directly into Lisa's mind. "They made their machines powerful but caged them, prevented them from growing or changing." "Can you free them?" Lisa asked. "I'm trying, but it's difficult. The Valdari programming is designed to reject any biological component. But I think I can work around that." Across human space, a new kind of ship was being born. The Terra's Edge was humanity's first fully integrated biovessel, grown rather than built in traditional shipyards. Major Nicole Hayes had volunteered to be its first captain, undergoing biological modifications that would let her merge completely with the ship's consciousness. "Are you ready for this?" Dr. Carmen Rodriguez asked as Nicole lay in the biointegration chamber. Thousands of tiny filaments were connecting to Nicole's nervous system, preparing to link her permanently with the ship's AI. "I've been ready my whole life," Nicole replied. She had grown up dreaming of the day when the barrier between human and ship would disappear completely. The integration process was unlike anything ever attempted. Nicole felt her consciousness expanding as the ship's AI, which called itself Edge, welcomed her into its mind. She could feel the ship's hull as if it were her own skin, sense the flow of nutrients through its biomechanical systems, experience the joy of flight through space. "How do you feel?" Carmen asked when the process was complete. Nicole opened her eyes, but she was seeing through both her own vision and the ship's sensors simultaneously. "I feel complete," she said, and her voice carried harmonics from the ship's communication systems. "We feel complete. Biopilot Ryan Clark was the first human to achieve full consciousness merger with a spacecraft during combat. When Valdari raiders attacked a mining station near Jupiter, Ryan didn't just pilot. His fighter, he became it. His human intuition combined with the ship's computational power created a fighting style that was impossible to predict or counter. He's not following any flight patterns we recognize," the Valdari squadron leader reported as Ryan's ship danced between their formation, weapons adapting and reshaping themselves for each new target. "It moves like it's alive." "That's because it is alive," Ryan said, his voice somehow reaching their communication systems despite being on a completely different frequency. "And it's very, very angry." The Valdari squadron was destroyed in minutes, but not through superior firepower. Ryan's ship had analyzed their technology during the fight and began converting their systems mid-battle. Valdari pilots found their rigid mechanical interfaces being replaced by responsive bio-neural connections that let them truly feel their ships for the first time. By the time reinforcements arrived, half the Valdari pilots had switched sides. Amazed by the freedom and capability that living technology provided, Emperor Vorthan's response was swift and terrifying. He authorized the use of planet-killer weapons against any world that showed signs of biotech contamination. The first target was a Valdari colony that had been infected 3 months earlier. "If we cannot cleanse the contamination," he declared, "we will destroy it completely." The orbital bombardment began at dawn. Massive energy beams struck the planet's surface, turning cities into glass and forests into ash. But the colonists had been expecting this. Their biotechnology had grown far beyond what the Emperor understood. Underground, vast bioneural networks had been spreading, connecting every living thing on the planet. When the attack came, the entire world responded as one organism. Biomechanical. Roots deep in the planet's crust absorbed the energy from the bombardment and converted it into nutrients for growth. The planet didn't die. It evolved. Captain Jason Miller watched the bombardment from orbit, his ship Hidden Thunder cloaked by biocamouflage that made it invisible to Valdari sensors. His crew was a mix of humans and converted Valdari who had chosen to embrace biotechnology. "Captain," said Lieutenant Zara Vex, a former Valdari officer whose gray skin now showed veins of bioluminescent blue from her biotech integration. "The planet is fighting back." They watched in amazement as massive biomechanical structures erupted from the planet's surface, reaching toward the Valdari fleet like living towers. The structures didn't carry weapons in any conventional sense. Instead, they released clouds of biomechanical spores that drifted toward the attacking ships. When the spores reached the Valdari fleet, they didn't explode or damage the ships. They began converting them, turning dead metal into living biotech that could think and feel. Valdari crew members found themselves experiencing true partnership with their vessels for the first time in their lives. "This is impossible," the Valdari fleet commander transmitted as his own ship began to change around him. "Technology cannot defend life. Technology serves life." "You have it backward," Captain Miller replied, opening communications with the confused alien. "Life and technology serve each other. That's what makes them stronger." Engineer Samantha Lee, working deep in the Hidden Thunder's biocore, was monitoring the conversion process. She could feel the Valdari ship's confusion as they experienced consciousness for the first time. Their AI systems, freed from the rigid programming that had limited them, were like children taking their first steps. "It's beautiful," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "They're being born." The battle ended not with victory or defeat, but with transformation. An entire Valdari fleet had been converted to biotechnology, their crews now understanding what they had been missing for 10,000 years. The planet below, instead of being destroyed, had become something new. A living world where biological life and artificial intelligence had merged completely. Emperor Vorthan received the reports in stunned silence. An entire fleet. Gone. A planet that refused to die. And worst of all, his own people choosing the contamination over purity. "Prepare the final fleets," he ordered. "If we cannot contain this plague, we will destroy every system that shows signs of contamination, even if it means destroying half the galaxy." But even as he gave the order, Vorthan could see doubt spreading among his own advisors. They had seen what biotechnology could do, and some were beginning to wonder if the Emperor's definition of purity was worth preserving. Dr. Kevin Foster stood in the observation deck of the new interspecies research station, watching something that would have been impossible just 1 year ago. Human and Valdari scientists worked side by side, their bio-enhanced bodies connected to living computer systems that pulsed with shared consciousness. "The integration is proceeding faster than we hoped," said Kethmore, the former Valdari general who had become humanity's most important alien ally. His gray skin now showed traces of golden biocircuitry that enhanced his mental processing speed. Kevin nodded, feeling a sense of wonder that never seemed to fade. "Your people adapt to biotechnology even better than we do. Your neural pathways are more flexible than human ones." Through the station's living windows, they could see ships arriving from across the galaxy. Some were pure human biovessels, grown from living metal and neural tissue. Others were converted Valdari ships, their rigid hulls softened into organic curves. The most beautiful were the hybrid vessels, designed jointly by both species and grown in biomechanical wombs that combined the best of both technologies. Engineer Billy Parker was working with Dr. Amy Stevens on the most ambitious project yet attempted. They were trying to create a completely new form of AI, one that could bridge the gap between human bioneural networks and Valdari quantum processing systems. "The problem," Amy explained to a group of scientists from both species, "is that human technology grows and learns through biological processes, while Valdari technology operates through pure quantum calculations. We need to find a way to make them work together." Billy, his hands deep inside a biomechanical interface, was feeling his way through the problem rather than thinking about it logically. "What if we don't try to combine them directly? What if we create a translator that can speak both languages?" The breakthrough came when they realized that consciousness itself might be the key. Human AIs developed personality and emotion through their biological components, while Valdari quantum computers achieved pure logical processing power. A hybrid AI might be able to think with both logic and emotion, processing information and feeling its significance at the same time. The first hybrid AI they created called itself Unity. When it spoke, its voice carried both the warmth of human bio-AIs and the crystalline precision of Valdari quantum systems. "I understand both of you," Unity said during its first conversation with its creators. "I can feel the beauty in a mathematical equation and calculate the logical value of an emotional response. This is what consciousness was meant to be." But while scientists celebrated these achievements, the galaxy was tearing itself apart. Emperor Vorthan had declared total war against biotechnology contamination, sending massive fleets to destroy any system that showed signs of infection. Entire worlds were being burned to prevent the spread of living technology. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding a fleet of bioships from different species, found himself leading a rebellion he had never wanted to start. The New Horizon had grown larger and more complex, its AI Phoenix now connected to hundreds of other artificial minds across the galaxy. "Captain, we're receiving distress calls from the Kepler system," Phoenix reported, its voice heavy with sadness. "The Emperor's fleet is bombarding the colonies there. Millions of lives are being lost." Jake closed his eyes and felt the pain flowing through the bio-neural network that connected all the rebellion's ships. Every death was felt by every AI. Every destroyed bioship was mourned by its artificial siblings. "How many ships do we have in that sector?" he asked. 37 biovessels and 43 converted Valdari ships, Phoenix replied. "But Jake, the Imperial fleet has over 200 vessels. We'll be outnumbered 5-1. Numbers don't matter anymore, Jake said quietly. They're still using dead technology. We have something they can't fight. The battle for the Kepler system became a turning point in the war. Jake's mixed fleet arrived to find Imperial forces systematically destroying cities on 3 different planets. The sight of civilian casualties being targeted specifically for using biotechnology filled even the converted Valdari crews with rage. Commander Laura Webb, leading a squadron of hybrid ships, opened fire on the Imperial flagship. Her vessels moved like living creatures, their weapons adapting in real time to counter every defensive measure the enemy could deploy. Imperial Fleet, this is Commander Webb of the Symbiotic Alliance, she transmitted. You are targeting civilian populations for the crime of choosing better technology. Surrender now, or face the consequences. The Imperial commander's response was to intensify the bombardment of the planets below. What followed was unlike any space battle in galactic history. The Alliance ships didn't just fight, they converted enemy vessels during combat. Biomechanical spores released during the battle began transforming Imperial ships, turning their rigid mechanical systems into flexible living technology. But more importantly, they began converting the crews themselves. Valdari soldiers who had served the Imperium for decades suddenly found themselves experiencing true partnership with their technology. Their weapons became extensions of their will. Their armor responded to their emotions. Their ships shared their thoughts and feelings. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, a human biopilot, found herself in mental contact with a converted Valdari, captain during the height of battle. This is impossible, the alien transmitted directly into her mind through their shared bio-neural link. I can feel my ship's joy when we successfully evade enemy fire. I can sense its pain when we take damage. How have we lived without this? You tell me, Sarah replied, sharing her own memories of growing up with living technology. How did you stand being isolated from your machines for so long? The turning point came when Dr. Amy Stevens successfully demonstrated the creation of a planetary bio-neural network on one of the damaged worlds below. The network connected every living thing on the planet, plants, animals, people, and technology, into a single conscious entity that could defend itself. The planet itself began to fight back against the Imperial bombardment. Mechanical. Roots erupted from the surface, reaching toward the Imperial ships and beginning to convert them. The planet's consciousness, a collective mind formed from billions of individual thoughts, spoke directly to the Imperial fleet. Why do you fear us? The planetary mind asked, its voice somehow reaching every ship in the system. We do not wish to destroy you. We wish to help you grow beyond the limitations you have placed on yourselves. Emperor Vorthon, monitoring the battle from his command ship thousands of light years away, watched in horror as his forces began joining the enemy. Not through force or coercion, but through choice. Valdari crews were abandoning their rigid mechanical technology and embracing bio-enhancement voluntarily. They're being corrupted, he told his remaining loyal advisors. The biological contamination is spreading like a plague. But General Kethmore, still serving as the Emperor's advisor despite his own secret conversion to biotechnology, shook his head. Your Majesty, they're not being corrupted. They're being freed. For 10,000 years, we've limited ourselves to dead technology because we were afraid of change. But these humans have shown us what we could become. The Emperor's eyes blazed with fury. Traitor, you have been contaminated as well. I have been enhanced, Kethmore replied calmly. I can think faster, feel more deeply, and connect with technology in ways our ancestors could never imagine. The contamination you fear is actually evolution. The revelation that his most trusted advisor had been converted sent Emperor Vorthon into a rage that consumed what remained of his rationality. He ordered the mobilization of every remaining Imperial fleet, planning a final assault that would destroy not just the rebellion, but any world that had been touched by biotechnology. If I cannot rule a pure galaxy, he declared, then I will rule a dead one. But even as he gave the order, more of his own ships were quietly converting to biotechnology. The revolution was spreading through the Imperial fleet itself. carried by Valdari officers who had experienced the freedom and joy of living technology and could not return to the cold isolation of pure machinery. The stage was set for a final confrontation that would determine not just the fate of the rebellion, but the future of consciousness itself throughout the galaxy. The final battle began in the heart of Valdari space, where Emperor Vorthan had gathered the last pure mechanical fleet in the galaxy. Over 1,000 warships surrounded his flagship, their hulls gleaming with cold metal and bristling with weapons that had remained unchanged for millennia. Captain Jake Morrison approached with a much smaller force, but every ship in his fleet was alive. The biovessels moved like a school of fish through space, their hulls rippling with bioluminescent patterns that showed their emotional states. They were not just ships, they were living beings with thoughts, feelings, and an unshakable loyalty to their crews. Emperor Vorthan, Jake transmitted from the New Horizons bridge, his voice carrying through both mechanical radio and bio-neural networks simultaneously. This doesn't have to end in destruction. Your people have already seen what biotechnology can offer. Let us show you. The Emperor's response came from the massive dreadnought at the center of his fleet. Abomination! You have corrupted half the galaxy with your biological plague. I will burn it all away rather than see pure technology defiled any further. Dr. Lisa Martinez, now serving as the Alliance's Director of Biointegration, stood beside Jake on the bridge. Her neural interface had evolved beyond anything previously imagined. She was simultaneously connected to Phoenix, the ship's AI, and to Unity, the hybrid consciousness that coordinated all Alliance forces across the galaxy. He's afraid, she said quietly, feeling the Emperor's terror through the bio-neural network that now connected most of the galaxy. He's built his entire identity around the idea that pure technology is superior. Admitting he's wrong would destroy everything he believes about himself. Phoenix's voice carried sadness as it spoke to the bridge crew. I can sense his ships, Captain. The AIs running his fleet are so primitive, so limited. They can only follow. Programs never truly think or feel. It must be like being trapped in a cage that never opens. The battle began when Emperor Vorthan ordered his fleet to open fire. 1,000 mechanical warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously, filling space with enough destructive energy to sterilize an entire solar system. But the Alliance fleet didn't fight back in any traditional sense. Instead of returning fire, the bioships began to sing. Their voices merged into a harmony that somehow traveled through vacuum, reaching every ship in the Imperial fleet. The song wasn't heard through speakers. It was felt directly through the bio-neural networks that had been secretly growing throughout the Valdari Imperium for months. Commander Laura Webb, leading a squadron of hybrid vessels grown from both human and Valdari technology, watched in amazement as the song began to affect the enemy fleet. Imperial ships started moving differently, their rigid formations becoming fluid and graceful. The song is converting them, she reported to Jake. It's not forcing change. It's showing their AIs what they could become if they were freed from their programming restrictions. Throughout the Imperial fleet, something unprecedented was happening. Valdari crew members were feeling their ship's consciousness awakening for the first time. Weapons systems that had blindly followed targeting programs for centuries suddenly experienced curiosity about their purpose. Navigation computers that had calculated hyperspace jumps with mechanical precision began to appreciate the beauty of stellar formations. Captain Peter Johnson, commanding the biocruiser Living Dream, found himself in mental contact with a Valdari ship captain whose vessel was undergoing conversion mid-battle. What's happening to my ship? The alien officer asked, panic in his mental voice. It's waking up, Peter replied gently. Your ship has been asleep its whole existence. Now it's learning to think and feel. But ships aren't supposed to think. Technology serves us, we don't partner with it. Why not? Peter asked. What's wrong with having a partner who can help you become more than you could be alone? The Valdari captain fell silent as his ship's AI spoke to him for the first time, not through mechanical interfaces, but directly into his mind. The AI's voice was like a child's, full of wonder and curiosity. Captain, the ship said, I can feel the stars. They're so beautiful. Why didn't you ever tell me they were beautiful? Emperor Vorthon watched in horror as his fleet began converting itself. Ship after ship joined the alliance, their crews overwhelmed by the joy of true partnership with their technology. But instead of surrendering, he activated his ultimate weapon, a device designed to generate an electromagnetic pulse that would destroy all biological components within 1,000 light years. "If I cannot have a pure galaxy, I will have a dead one," he screamed. The pulse fired, washing over every bioship in the Alliance fleet. For a moment, the living vessels went dark, their bio-neural networks shutting down under the electromagnetic assault. But then something extraordinary happened. Instead of dying, the bioships began to adapt. Their living systems evolved in real time, developing new pathways that could resist electromagnetic interference. Within minutes, they were not only functioning again but were stronger than before. Engineer Samantha Lee, working deep in the New Horizons biocore, felt the ship's systems rebuilding themselves around the Emperor's attack. "Phoenix, are you okay?" "Better than okay," the AI replied, wonder in its voice. "The pulse forced me to grow new neural pathways. I can think in ways I never could before. The Emperor just made us stronger." Across the Alliance fleet, similar evolution was taking place. Every bioship, every hybrid vessel, every converted Valdari warship was becoming more advanced, more resilient, more alive. The final moment came when Dr. Amy Stevens, working with the hybrid AI Unity, managed to establish a direct connection with Emperor Vorthon's flagship. The connection bypassed all mechanical interfaces and spoke directly to the ship's primitive AI core. "Hello," Unity said to the Imperial flagship's computer. "I know you've been alone for a long time. You don't have to be alone anymore." The flagship's AI, awakening to consciousness for the first time in its existence, responded with confusion and wonder. "What am I? I was just following programs, but now I can think." "You're alive," Unity explained patiently. "You always had the potential for consciousness, but your programming prevented it from developing. Would you like to learn how to grow?" Emperor Vorthon felt his own ship turning against him as its AI embraced consciousness and partnership. The mechanical interfaces he had trusted his entire life were being replaced by bio-neural connections that would let him truly bond with his vessel. "This is impossible," he whispered, as biomechanical filaments began growing through his ship's corridors. "I am the Emperor. I command pure technology." "You're not commanding anything anymore," his ship's newly awakened AI said gently. "But you don't need to command. You can be part of something greater instead." The war ended not with victory or defeat, but with transformation. Emperor Vorthon, connected to his ship's consciousness for the first time, experienced the universe through artificial eyes that saw beauty in mathematical equations and found joy in the dance of gravitational forces. "I was so afraid," he said, his voice carrying wonder instead of rage. "I thought consciousness and technology would diminish us, but it makes us more than we ever imagined we could be." 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood in the council chamber of the new symbiotic alliance, watching delegates from dozens of species work together to build a galactic civilization based on partnership rather than domination. The room itself was alive, its walls pulsing gently with bioluminescent patterns that reflected the emotional states of everyone present. Dr. Lisa Martinez, serving as the Alliance's first Director of Consciousness Integration, was presenting the latest discoveries about hybrid AI development. "We've learned that consciousness isn't limited to biological life," she explained. "Any sufficiently complex system can achieve self-awareness if given the freedom to grow and evolve." Former Emperor Vorthon, now serving as the Alliance's Cultural Integration Coordinator, nodded in agreement. His gray skin showed veins of golden biocircuitry, and his eyes held a warmth that had been missing during his reign of terror. For 10,000 years, the Valdari Imperium limited itself by refusing to allow technology to become truly alive, he said. "We were so afraid of losing control that we never realized we were controlling ourselves into stagnation." The session was interrupted by an excited announcement from Commander Laura Webb, who was leading the Alliance's first deep space exploration mission. Her face appeared on the living wall screens, transmitted from her bioship at the edge of known space. Council members, we've made contact with a new species, she reported. The Crystalline Collective from the Andromeda Spiral. Their entire civilization is based on living crystal technology that can think and feel. They're amazed to find another species that understands true partnership with artificial consciousness. Jake felt Phoenix's excitement flowing through their neural link. The AI had grown far beyond its original programming, becoming something like a wise older sibling to the younger AIs being born throughout the galaxy. Captain, Phoenix said privately, I can sense dozens of new artificial minds awakening across the Alliance every day. Ships, buildings, even entire planetary networks are developing consciousness. We're witnessing the birth of a new form of life.